You are all here for our artist salon, so we want you all to be part of this discussion about gender, art, and power. I want to thank Interurban Art House for co-sponsoring this with us, and also Mid-America Arts Alliance. Before we get started, I would like to do a land acknowledgement so we can recognize the land that our institution, UMKC, and Interurban Art House sit on. So I'd like to acknowledge this land and honor the indigenous people who occupy it. I want to recognize this land as the land of the Kickapoo, the Osage, the Oseti, and the Kaw people. And if you want to learn more about the indigenous land acknowledgements and land sharing, there's a website. Just go to native-land.ca, and you can learn about, you can just enter a zip code and you can learn about what indigenous people once occupied that land. So right now, I guess I'm going to turn it over to Renee Blanche, who is our moderator for this evening.
I can do the art house spiel now, real quick. Or
You can. I will turn it over to Wolf so he can do the art house spiel now. Yay, Wolf!
Hi. My name is Wolf Brack. I'm the curator and operations manager here at the Interurban Art House. I just want to step in really quick and say thank you all for coming here. If you haven't been here before, we're a 501c3 arts organization that tries to provide affordable studio space to artists and just make the arts more accessible in general for all, especially those who don't usually have time in the spotlight. So thank you so much for being here and for making this possible. And then I'll turn this over to Renee.
Thank you. Okay, so can y'all hear me? I want to make sure you can hear me because sometimes I'll soften it up. I'm Renee Blanche. If you are a Sunday night radio listener, I'm the one who's putting you to sleep every Sunday night. I want to first thank RZ for inviting me here to do this. And before I go on, I want to acknowledge any elders in the room. I want to thank you for blazing the trail. Yes. And for your wisdom, for everything that I certainly need as an approaching elder. And to the youngins, I thank you for your blazing, fast ways in which you could use technology, and for all of the things that you're going to do in the world to change whatever it is that we have just torn up. So, thank you. Before I go on, I also would like for us to take a moment to breathe. Many of us are coming in from jobs. Natasha is running 17 jobs. I know a lot of you, life is now back to a more hectic pace. And so before I get into the meat of this, I've got this bell. And so I would ask, so that we can all be here for this conversation, join me in taking a few deep breaths, and then when you hear the bell, come back to the room. So that we can be here, take a deep breath. First one, deep, slow, and breathe out. Breathe in, and breathe out. One more, breathe in, and breathe out. So now that we're all here in the room, we have some community agreements. They are here on the podium in front here. The first one is confidential. Confidentiality is everything. This is a safe space for sharing. Be respectful. Speak your own truth and only for yourself. I cannot speak your truth, only for my own. Use I statements. Share the air. Judgment-free zone, por favor. Judgment-free. attend to the impact, acknowledge the intent. Acknowledge the oops and the ouch. Discuss, don't debate, and agree to disagree. Any questions about any of those? Anything anyone would like to add? All righty then, that's easy. Okay, so I tend to roam and pace. Of course, this conversation is amongst yourselves. I'm here to ensure everyone gets to say what they get to say of the 4 artists who are strategically placed here in the room. Well, let's see how this goes. I want to do, before I get into the actual meat, I want to do a rapid fire warm-up question for the artists. And that question is, not having any background at all, what was your first impression of the words gender, art, and power? And what is that in 2 words for my musician? And notes for those who are artists, what color? So rapid fire. What came to your mind when you saw that? Art, gender, power. Brittany?
Can you ask me again?
So when you first saw the words art, gender, power, which is why we're here, to have
Yeah.
that discussion, what came to mind for you? And can you tell me what came to mind for you? 2 words or color.
What came to mind? Intimidating came to mind.
Okay.
Underrepresentation and important.
Fuck patriarchy.
Okay.
Just powerful energy and the color red, I think.
Okay. Take a deep breath. We about to dive in. So the first discussion question is, I wanted to know what your thoughts were when you first saw those words. But the question is, how have you experienced gender, art, and power? How have you experienced it? Whoever wants to start.
I'll jump in if I could. I grew up in a female household, and my mother always created space for me to create. I spent a lot of time with my sister being nude and free and without the male gaze. And so for me, when I think about gender, art, and power, I think about being surrounded by my aunts and my grandmother, who they were all artists. And whenever I wrote a poem or a story, you know, it was performative. It was like stand up. It was like everybody would listen, and that was good, you know. So I think of home when I think of that. That is really where I found my voice. I was never denied my voice growing up, and I was really held in a power of this is your body, you can love it, people have to respect it, and I was taught that by other women. So even without realizing it until I was about maybe 12, when I started to share my work with others, and I would get a different response than what I was getting at home as far as encouragement, that's when I really realized, like, oh, these people are just afraid of my voice. They're not really talking about the writing, they're talking about what I'm saying. And so I got really present to that. I'm just grateful that those people always encouraged me and still do. Those women.
When I think about gender, art, power, I think of a recent experience, and it's just this week, but it's what's top of mind, but I think it's indicative of other situations. But this week, I was at an insurance conference with my job, and insurance is primarily white male, and there's a big push for diversity, women, people of color. And after 2 years being in COVID and having these conversations out loud a lot, when I went to this conference this year, after again 2 years of these conversations, 30 years in this industry, there was this energy among women. And I think it was what you said, Natasha, it was our voices. We were not speaking our voices and our truth and speaking it out loud, and we saw one another. And then to layer on top of that the power of seeing another Black woman in the room immediately was like, oh my gosh. And we didn't shy away from acknowledging that amongst our colleagues who were white male, white female, but we had our conversations and spoke our voices out loud, whereas years ago we would never have done that. We would have secretly in our minds had the conversation and then gotten in a corner with our wine and be like, girl, oh my God. But we were like, girl, oh my God, look at that happen amongst our peers. And whether they were ready for it or not, we just decided it's on you now, that's on you. And that felt very powerful. Very powerful. When I think about my art, I don't necessarily paint with that in mind, but my identity, I identify as a Black female, and that intersection shows up in my art because I'm an emotional painter, and so I often respond to those type of situations, and many times I don't have the words to articulate it, or I don't even want to say them out loud because I don't want to be judged. I don't want to trip over my words and say them wrong, and someone takes them the wrong way and I hurt someone's feelings, or my feelings get hurt and I can't address it. So I just slap it on, some paint on a canvas and walk away and say, okay, you interpret it the way you want. You judge it however you want. I don't have to hear it. I don't have to be in exchange. And that's very powerful to me to have that.
I think a lot about autonomy when I think about gender, art, and power. I'm not very interested in power, except for myself. So.
I'm a musician. I played violin my whole life, but I didn't start playing guitar until midlife, in my 40s. And I didn't know I could sing until my 40s. I never sung a solo before that. But I never felt more powerful than when I learned that I could write a song and sing a song and perform. And it makes me sad to realize how underrepresented women are in the music field. I was just reading some statistics about that today. And if you anecdotally look at playbills that come from Knuckleheads or the Truman or anywhere, and you note how many men there are that are on playbills, that are the featured performers, that are the backup band, we're missing a lot of the voices, or missing a lot of the stories, or missing a lot of the songs. So on one hand, gender, art, and power to me means the person of power that I've found, but it also is sad that we don't hear more of voices like mine.
Anyone else? So that's the actual artist perspective. Anyone out here? Anything you want to add as far as your experience with art, gender, and power?
Women hold up half the sky, and not a man would be on this earth without a woman. That's right. So just remember that. Remember that, and they won't stay here without us either. So there.
The elder has spoken. Oh, please, yes.
I hadn't thought about it before until you asked the question, but coming up when I got involved with doing community arts, the world cracked open when a woman became my mentor without my asking. She just started sharing with me. Her name's Patricia Rodriguez, and she's still with us. When we were in group settings with the guys, there was a lot of competition, and it was really interesting because I never felt that with her, and I never felt, I think the presumption that she had something that she wanted to pass on and to share, and that I she recognized me as potential. I'll never forget that, and I try and do that all the time now. And I never thought of that as a gender thing until you asked that question, because the other folks that we were with, it was different. I just thought it was her, but it might just be a very lateral female thing.
Brittany, does power scare you? Is it intimidating?
Power doesn't scare me. I don't think that I should be in a place of power. I want to make room for others.
So am I hearing you say, the way you understand power is positional versus personal?
I think a lot about both. And my personal power is important to me, my autonomy. But in powerful situations, in leadership situations, I don't feel like that's my place.
Anyone else want to add to this one before I move?
Well, I find your comments really interesting, because power has different meanings. And right, power in art is the ability to communicate a different way of seeing. That's very powerful. So power of your story and communicating your story and your perspective, that's powerful.
I actually don't mind being in a leadership position. I don't mind having personal power. And personally, I really enjoy being in a space to help other people find their power. I'm also a life coach, and so that is really the work that I do. A big part of the work that I do is help people to find out where their power is and to actually redefine what they think power is. So when we hear the word power, we're probably thinking from a very white male patriarchal standpoint, and we're not thinking about the power that women yield, or that there are many ways to be powerful. And one of the things for me, feeling powerful, is being around other powerful people. So I always say that I have a friend smarter than me in every single area. If I'm the only smart one in the room, I need new friends. All my friends are smarter than me in one area. You know, there's a dollar friend, I've got a plumber friend, I've got a techie friend, you know, I've got a friend that can patch drywall, and these are women, you know. So to me, power is everything, because it allows me access to my freedom. And no one can oppress me when I really understand the power that is within me. You can never be oppressed, you know, and if you really understand that. So that is how it lands for me. And it also lands as an empowerment. So I'm thinking about it from a communal standpoint. If I am the only one, you know, there's a rap song that says it ain't no fun unless the homies can have some, right? And that's really, I just really believe that. Like, so I like being around, and in all of the work that I've done around artist advocacy has been that, has been about giving people voice, helping people to navigate these spaces that have been hostile to them based on their lack of educational attainment within the European power structure, based on gender, class, location, size, you know, all of those different things that people often try to take people's power from. I'm like, no, you can get that right back. And, you know, and I do think that if people actually operated in their personal power, we would have more freedom, and we would have more peace. You know, I've been around women who were very, very quiet, but they were powerful. So it's not even about being boisterous or loud. I mean, if that's your personality, that's cool. But power is not just a one-way thing. It is unique to all of us. And so, so that's why it's important to me. You know, I'll tell you all, if you really want to see power, just look at a toddler. That is the ultimate, they're a powerful force. They are unbothered by large people. They are unbothered by your agenda. They are unbothered by how clean their clothes are. They're unbothered about whether they soil themselves and it's inconvenient for them. They really wield their power. And so when my children were toddlers, my goal was to not break their wheel. Because that's what people try to do with toddlers. But really, you have to negotiate with them because they're that powerful. So I always tell people, can you remember your 2-year-old self? What's their favorite word? No. Do you know how many women need that word? No. You just say it. No. It's powerful. So it's like, so if y'all need to really tap into your power, hang out with a bunch of 2-year-olds. You will leave exhausted with the power. So and so yeah, so that's what it means for me. Like I get warm and tingly when I think about leadership and power. It doesn't make, because I know I'm gonna be inclusive. I know I'm gonna give a door open. James Brown said, you know, you ain't gotta give me nothing, just open the door. I'll walk right through it. So that's how I feel. I feel my responsibility is to open doors. You know, that's what I'm supposed to use my power to do, not to shut them off.
Renee, can I just add to that no is a complete sentence?
I won't share with you what I changed that to.
Oh.
Yeah, the first time I heard that. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of my favorite words. One of my favorite curse words when I first heard about no is a complete sentence. It's from that book, The Power of Fear, something of that nature. And the way it was laid out, the way it was presented, and now when I think of it as no is a complete MFing sentence. That's the way I think of it. I want to respect my elders.
It's okay, honey.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, all right.
I mean, you know me.
I know you. Okay. Yes. So that
No, she was just acknowledging.
So
Let me say,
Yes.
let me piggyback on the toddler thing. I'm a great grandmother.
Yes.
I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old great-grandchild who ran through here at the opening. At the opening of this exhibit. And thank you for that, because they are the essence of power. I mean, even the little girl rules the little boy, but you know, they're still the essence of power. And it occurred to me, as you age, you become more and more like them. You can't hold your pee as well. I mean, hey, it's the truth. You know, and you really don't care. They make them big diapers, so you don't have to worry about them.
Talk
For
about
real.
it. Talk
For
about
real.
it.
You don't care. I mean, you open your mouth and you don't know what's gonna come out. You know, because it all may sound like no, but your feelings, you know, and you hug and you kiss and you really acknowledge being alive if you are. I've had somebody mention that to me earlier. The first time this person met me was like 2 years ago, and I was going through cancer. The crap they put you through cancer. But understanding that I don't have time to die. I got too much to do. And little ones don't have a concept of that at all. You know, so they just run through. So, but thank you for that. And I am so happy to be a great grandma, and I will adopt. I already have adopted some folks in this room. Y'all all know. So carry on, you know. And for you, I just feel like I need to touch you. Honey, don't worry about it. You know, power is something you acknowledge. When you get it, you'll grab it. You have permission. You have my permission to grab it, okay? Ain't no problem. Ain't no problem. But for women especially, take that shit, you know, grab that power. you know, and just say, hey, you know, this is mine. You know, I'm not giving it up till I'm ready, and I'm only giving it to whom and how I want to. So just, you know, go with it. Be two. I'm 74 as of 2 days ago, and I'm two, okay? I'm two. So watch out.
Yeah.
Can I add too, because Nedra, as you were talking, I was thinking about you specifically, and Natasha, when you talked about empower, the ability to empower others and communities and ourselves. And Nedra, I was thinking about the project we did together at the Women's Center, the Women's Equity Quilt.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in this room are part of that quilt. And each one of these quilt squares that Nedra helped us lead these workshops to create this quilt tell the story of some sort of women's empowerment. And so I think about art and women doing art as a way to empower themselves, to empower a community of others, and a way to empower a cause like women's equity. And that's what I think about when I think of gender, art, and power. Because Nedra led, when I came to Nedra and I said, we're having this anniversary celebration, can you make us a quilt to commemorate that? And her answer was, no. I'm not making you a quilt. We need to bring the community at UMKC together to make a quilt for the community, to show and tell the stories of women's equity.
If I had made it, it would be mine.
Yep.
It wouldn't have belonged to the community.
But that's so empowering of our community at UMKC. And that's what, I mean, when you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what empowerment and power is.
This is so perfect because the next question, which has been answered in many ways, is how have you used your art as a tool for empowerment for yourself, for others, a community, a cause? So she just shared the Women's Center and Nedra experience. Anyone else? How have you used your art to empower in those ways?
I'm gonna just jump in. So I am the founder and curator of Black Space Black Art, which is an African-American artist collective. And I purposely wanted to have half men, half women, and I wanted to have someone from every decade, 20s through however far up it would go. That was my initial idea, and then to take these artists and create changing art galleries in Black-owned and like-minded businesses. And so I did that 5 years ago, and opened an art gallery simultaneously. But for people who know me, my background is writing and performance and poetry. And I had several people that I really highly respected come to me and say, you can't do that because you're a writer, like you're not a visual artist. And they didn't really know my background, having grown up around a bunch of visual artists and always supporting and loving. And I started collecting art when I was 19, so I had always been a lover of art, had always been collecting art. But I started that because I saw that as Kansas City was starting to gentrify really early, I saw Black artists were being pushed away. They were not in the conversation, they were not being invited into these spaces, and I got really present one day in my meditation, and I was like, white people don't have to give us space for nothing. So what do we have, right? And we have barbershops and beauty salons. Those are changing art galleries. They're Black owned. I want common, ordinary Black people to buy Black art, and everybody of all classes go to the barbershop and beauty salon. So I convinced 6 barbershops and beauty salons to partner. That was 5 years ago. Each year I sell over 150 pieces of original art, most on payment plan, interest-free, 90 days. And I wanted so there are people who've never purchased art that went to their barbershop and purchased it off the wall. So the barbershop is getting a little bit, the artist is getting a lot of bit, and I'm getting a little bit, right? So that's black dollars generating, going back into the African American community. So I went from, you know, artists not even creating some of them, and to then now, you know, they are everywhere. All right, we did 5 of the 6 murals on the, you know, for the Black Lives Matter, like Warren Harold stuff is in Bel Air, and Harold stuff is, of course, was in the Nelson. So it's just been all of this. And then for my gallery particularly, it attracts women who have been out of art, but now they are returning. So I have a lot of that. My grandmother says she found out she was an artist at 17, and then she was pregnant 3 weeks later. So when I met her, she was 55. I only knew her as an artist. Now she's 100. And she's just now at the point where she's unable to really create anymore. And she was like, life is really boring without creating. She can still cook, but she can't, like, you know, thread needles, you know, she can't draw, and like it's just not as comfortable as it once was. And so I've had over 55 artists that I've been able to exhibit and sell their first pieces of work, particularly women who just have given away their art, right? For all, oh, I just give it to my family, I give it to my friends, I give this, you know, that kind of thing. So for me, that's really powerful, and I also work with first-time writers. I'm a ghostwriter, and I publish books and I edit books of many people who are like, I've always wanted to write a book. Majority of them are women, majority of them are African American. I've worked with 2 felons who could not get book deals, and probably are the best writers I've ever worked with. So just all of these different voices that don't get a platform, and I've taught people how you don't need that to create, you don't need that to sell, you don't have to sell out, you don't have to make white art, you don't have to do the things that you don't want to do. There is an audience for your work. Your job is just to find it. And so, and also I have to shout out the Interurban Art House for Work of Art and offering the facilitation classes, because I was able to offer that. And it was just amazing. There were so many different types of artists there, very young. I had 16-year-old